You've probably walked past someone who needed help before, not because you didn't care, because of a switch in your brain that flips the moment other people are around. Psychologists have a name for it: the bystander effect. The more people who could step in, the less likely any single one of them actually will. It sounds backwards. More potential help should mean more actual help. It doesn't work that way. And once you understand why, you'll start noticing it everywhere. In comment sections, in emergencies, in the moment you decided someone else would probably handle it. In 1964, a young woman named Kitty Genovese was murdered outside her apartment building in Queens, New York. The version that made it into psychology textbooks for the next 60 years was brutal and specific. 38 witnesses heard or saw the attack, and not one of them called the police. That number became a moral parable. Proof a city full of people could watch someone die and do nothing. Here's the part almost nobody was told. In 2007, researchers Rachel Manning, Mark Levine, and Alan Collins went back through the original court records and police files and found the number was fabricated. There's no evidence 38 people witnessed the attack. The building's layout meant no single resident could have seen the whole assault. At least one witness shouted at the attacker, who fled and returned later. A retired police officer, a teenager at the time, swore his father did call police that night. The case that supposedly proved bystanders do nothing wasn't just exaggerated. Key parts of it may never have happened. So the story that launched 50 years of psychology was mostly fiction. The unsettling part: the psychologists who read it tested it anyway, and what they found in the lab turned out to be completely real. In 1968, researchers John Darley and Bib Latane brought college students into a lab one at a time for what they were told was an intercom discussion with other participants in separate rooms, then staged an emergency. One of the other participants, actually a recording, began having what sounded like a seizure, choking on his words, calling for help. Some students believed they were the only one listening. Others believed one more person could hear it. Others believed two more could. When each student thought they were the only one who could hear the emergency, 85% of them left the room to get help, most within a minute. When they believed one other person could also hear it, that dropped to 62%. When they believed two other people could hear it, it dropped again to 31%. Nothing else changed. Same recording, same fake seizure, same room. The only variable was how many other people the students believed were also listening, and the more people who could theoretically help, the less likely each individual person was to move. Darley and Latane called this diffusion of responsibility. When you're the only witness, the entire weight lands on you. When there are others, that weight gets divided, and here's the part that's easy to miss, not through a conscious decision. Nobody in the study thought someone else will handle it and felt fine about it. The delayed responders were visibly distressed, hands shaking, breathing fast, caught between two signals. This is an emergency, and apparently it isn't urgent enough for anyone else to move either. Other people's inaction becomes evidence that inaction is correct, even while everyone is silently panicking for the same reason. It gets stranger. In 1973, John Darley and Daniel Batson ran an experiment on seminary students training to become ministers. Some were told to walk across campus and deliver a talk on a neutral topic. Others were told to talk specifically about the parable of the Good Samaritan, the story about stopping to help a stranger. On the way, every student passed a man slumped in an alley, coughing, in distress. An actor planted by the researchers. Whether the student was about to lecture on helping strangers made almost no difference. What mattered was whether they'd been told they were running late. Students with time to spare helped most of the time. Students told to hurry stepped over the man at a dramatically higher rate, some literally stepping over his body to get to a lecture about the Good Samaritan. It was never really about who you are. It was about the specific conditions you're standing in when the moment arrives. For decades, that was where the science more or less sat. More witnesses, less individual responsibility, less help, replicated dozens of times across different countries and staged emergencies. Then, in 2011, the picture got more complicated. Psychologist Peter Fisher and colleagues pooled over 100 bystander studies, more than 7,700 participants, and found something the original theory hadn't predicted. In low-risk, ambiguous situations, the classic pattern held. But in situations that were obviously dangerous, a physical assault, a real threat, the effect shrank and sometimes reversed. More witnesses meant more helping, not less. Their explanation, real danger, leaves no room for the ambiguity diffusion of responsibility feeds on. You don't have time to wonder if it's really an emergency or whether someone else is already handling it. A genuine threat triggers a faster, more physical response. And other bystanders stop being competition for responsibility and start being backup. Then came the twist nobody expected. In 2020, a team led by Richard Philpott got access to something Dali and Latane never had. Real surveillance footage of real public conflicts. Hundreds of hours of CCTV from cities in the Netherlands, South Africa, and the UK, capturing actual physical altercations as they happened. In 9 out of 10 recorded conflicts, at least one bystander intervened, usually several did. And the more bystanders present, the more likely someone was to step in. The opposite of what 6 decades of lab research would have predicted. So which is true? Both. Group size really does suppress helping in situations that are quiet, ambiguous, and low stakes. Exactly what Dali and Latane engineered with an intercom and a recorded voice. But out in the world, where danger is visible and immediate, something closer to the opposite kicks in. People don't diffuse responsibility. They recruit each other. Which means the switch in your brain that flips when other people are around isn't a character flaw, and it isn't fixed. It's a calculation your nervous system runs in real time, based on how certain, how urgent, and how dangerous a moment feels. One you're running constantly, usually without noticing, every time you're near someone who might need you.